Well, good morning, everybody. First, I just want to thank everybody last week for giving me suggestions on getting a new microphone. My new microphone comes in tomorrow. Unfortunately, I will be out of the state. I'm heading out to Springfield later today and then Reno for an event, and I won't be home till Thursday. And so by Friday, though, I should have a whole new sound in my voice again, much higher quality. So I'm looking forward to that. Just thinking about yesterday, though, my wife's van broke down and I had to replace our alternator. And when I left to go pick up the parts later in the afternoon, it was kind of funny because my neighbor was outside. I live right over here in East Central Illinois, and she was outside and just looking off in the distance, I think just standing in the sun. I think it's the first time a lot of us have seen the sun in this area because of the just intense fog for the last 10 to 12 days that's been here and the cloud cover. It was fun to watch, some satellite data from yesterday. I was just mainly looking to where that snowpack was still sitting in through this area. I was also trying to see how much of it was up in parts of North Dakota, which is expecting, very mild temperatures today. And then you kind of get a good look across the west. Now, these numbers here, when you look at the snowpack throughout the west, that's going to be changing a lot in the next 7 or 8 days, as we have at least 2 good pulses of moisture coming in to California. And I'm really adding a lot of snow to the Sierra Nevada mountains. But I know the Ohio Valley had to wait the longest on getting rid of that cloud cover. But as we just play through into the early morning hours as the sun was rising, there's still more cloud in this area as little fronts trying to sneak through. But I did create this graph, a little bit different color bar, just to make it a little bit easier to see. I was curious, over the last month, who's really missed out on seeing the sun. And our kind of cloudiest spots have been Northern California and Oregon. Now, that's pretty common in this area, but this is actually an anomaly map. So this is compared to average. It's even been much more cloudy compared to average. Same thing for Florida as well. But if you wanted to go and see some sunshine, you had to head pretty far to the south into Mexico or Texas, down here in southern parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, although they got hammered with rain last week. This is a 30-day map, though. And then it's parts of the western and northern plains here. Just so you understand, this color shading you see right in through here means that over about a 30-day time period, the deficits in sunlight, because of cloud cover, added up to about 30 hours of not having any sun at all when it should be shining. So it's just kind of a neat way to kind of look at that information. But a lot of attention is going to be turning to the western part of the United States, and specifically out here into the Gulf of Alaska, where we've got a few storm systems kind of stacked up ready to come on shore. And this one right here is pretty impressive, the one that's coming in next. So that'll be a lot of our attention. And if you want to see what that one looks like in the wind field, it's pretty powerful. Sitting out there spinning today, we're going to watch this one advance toward the west coast here very shortly. And as you know, what it's being kind of spurred along by are these very, very fast winds in the jet stream, which in the near term are splitting. See, it comes out here and splits north. Another piece splits to the south, leaving this high over low pattern going across North America for a while. But this will deliver systems to the west coast. We just need to continue to assess how much. Now, I think the story is being written at that level, so I'm going to just start here to set you up for what I'm going to share with you. And it'll be a question of when does this all begin to break down before we can really answer that longer-term forecast question. So playing through Wednesday into Thursday here, you can see the stronger flow coming into Southern California. It's going to get into Arizona, but the split here is pretty impressive going across the midsection of North America. That lasts through Friday, getting into Saturday, and then it'll be this weekend that I'll be watching this next piece coming into California, delivering what I think will be quite impressive snowfall totals in the Sierra Nevada. And do you notice one thing? What it goes from is coming in like this to coming in like this once we see the weekend arrive. So this is Friday, getting into Saturday and Sunday. And that's why early next week, as that flow shifts and comes back out of the southwest like this, we start to see better chances for moisture returning into the plains of the United States and eventually pressing, sometime after the 7th, 8th, and 9th into, or really starting on the 7th and 8th and 9th, going into the Midwest as well. And the reason why that happens is, well, it helps that the main part of the jet retracts, as we talked about, and that just lets this piece at the end kind of inflect and turn a bit as it comes across the United States. But there is one thing that is certain about this pattern. It does not have a strong polar component to it. It's all subtropical driven, which is common during El Nino. So playing out there to the 11th and the 12th and the 13th, the top thing I'll be watching out here once we get to almost Valentine's Day is, does the split now return back into the west coast? Because that could be the precursor to building a ridge in this area that could start to dislodge some of the colder air that's been in Greenland as well as Alaska here. So sorry, I know I circled those while I said them differently, but Greenland and Alaska. And that could start to just set things up to deliver some colder air finally into the central United States. But one thing's for sure, I think the front half of February just hangs on to mild conditions. So bigger picture things. This is the next 10 days according to the ECMWF high-res run. And one of the things that did change from run to run is just the moisture that's coming in through this area, now extending back farther into the Canadian Prairie, the northern plains, and it also got a bit wetter into parts of California and in parts of Arizona as well. If you are in kind of this section of the Midwest, Great Lakes, New England, we do get a break, and there's some places in here that do need a slowdown in this moisture, and the Northwest is a bit drier as well. But the temperature pattern is really locked in place for at least the next couple of weeks. And we see here that all the coldest air is in Alaska and Greenland. That big open, high over low pattern here is just letting all of the mild air flood into central North America for the next 5 days. Day 5 through 10, it just moves a hair east. And day 10 through 15, it's still sitting here east, which means we're just going to have to get past this front half of the month before we can get any sort of kind of a disruption in that. So thinking out here about week 2, I do want to give you the newest updates from the Climate Prediction Center and NOAA on their risk maps. So they're just trying to identify the risk of the heavy snow. So you notice that I talked about 2 events, one coming in now, one coming in this weekend. Well, they're looking out here from the 6th to the 12th that even better chances of more snow coming in to the kind of Great Basin, Southern Rockies, Sierra Nevada area. In fact, the whole of the Western Mountains should do a good job at picking up snow, save the Cascade Mountains. From there, I want to show you the risk of heavy precipitation, so that kind of stays on in that week 2 time frame down here into Southern California and Arizona. That's the highest risk, and the risk for stronger winds will be there as well. Now, getting into this near-term forecast, it was kind of nice to see a day where the country just didn't deal a lot with weather. I mean, January has been an extremely active month. We looked at the month-to-date stats yesterday. But if you just have a look here through 5 a.m., we just have a little front sneaking through here. And that front did bring in some ice early this morning in parts of Michigan and maybe into northern Indiana, but mostly a little frontal boundary with some rain right in through this area. And that's really all that's really going on around the country, except for this just weak, narrow band of rain that's coming in here in the northwest early this morning as well. So taking a look at the all hazards weather map, the changes will happen on this map first in the west, where we have flood watches out, winter storm watches out. There are a few places with some dense fog, but notice no dense fog advisories east of the Rocky Mountains. I mean, all the way to the coast. It's so nice to be able to see that. There's going to be some strong winds here, though, with this system. And inside that deep low I showed you in the satellite animation, the winds are very, very intense. So let's go have a look at where this is all going to go. Starting at 6 a.m. this morning, we're going to watch that one low moving over the Great Lakes, spill into parts of the eastern Great Lakes and Ohio River Valley, push up against the Appalachian Mountains, and that's about it. It's not a real big precipitation producer, but that'll happen from now all the way through the day today on Tuesday. Early tomorrow morning, some light showers are coming into parts of the Carolinas, and then this just leaves and goes off the coast. Now, at that point, notice what's going on in the west. So we have that front just skirting along the coast early Wednesday morning, playing through the day on Wednesday, and it's going to slowly start to meander itself closer and closer, and it's going to be Wednesday throughout the day, getting into Wednesday night and Thursday morning that the snows really start to add up in the Sierra Nevada. You'll watch early this week snow levels start off at like 6,000 feet, maybe even higher than that, and then all week long they're going to continue to come down such that by the end of the week we may be able to get snow, I don't know, at 2,500 to 3,000 feet. But there is going to be a flood threat in Southern California out of this with very heavy rainfall coming in there in multiple rounds, and we better go have a look at it by just paying attention to the multi-model analysis. There's something interesting my colleague Matt Reardon has pointed out about the skill scores of the model, and this is something I think we need to research a bit more. But you'll notice that just every once in a while, after kind of plateauing for a while, they just kind of dump off in their accuracy. And here it has been, and we're doing this again. Now, what I'm about to say is not a causation correlation thing, but I just want to make a point that the last time it fell apart was the very beginning of the Arctic surge that happened about 2 weeks afterward. So this is something that he is really keen on, and I'm excited to see what he ends up learning about it. But I just wanted to bring you up to speed on that one thing. The models are beginning to lose their ability to pick up on this pattern well. So we need to start looking at these and be careful not to read too much into a single model run and pay attention to those ensembles. So a lot of our attention is going to be in the west. This is playing through tonight into tomorrow morning, on Wednesday morning, playing through the day on Wednesday. Here comes that first deep low. See the frontal boundary coming into California at this point, Oregon and Washington. Now playing through Thursday afternoon, getting into Thursday night, Friday morning. That's going to move through the Great Basin, over the Central Rockies, and early this weekend. See that? See how it's starting to pull that moisture from Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas up into parts of Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota. That's great to see that moisture getting there. And this is going to put down some heavy snow right here along the spine of the Central and Northern Rockies. As we then play it past Saturday morning into Saturday afternoon and evening, this frontal boundary will kind of elongate itself from Montana all the way down to Mississippi here. And it's just going to stretch out as that low kind of takes off on the southern branch of the jet. So remember, there is no polar branch to kick off a low in this area, so it's all going to stay south. So that plays you through the weekend. And then as we watch, the next big surge, and this is the one I'm most concerned about for California, comes in on Sunday, getting into Sunday afternoon and evening, right there. That's the one where the snow levels come down. We could get just a tremendous amount of snow getting added, strong winds, flood threat. This is a big and powerful system that's coming in here. And as it slides farther to the south, notice that once you go from Sunday into Monday, the push comes into Southern California here. The snow continues to hit the Sierra Nevada. And even into early Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, that low curls up just like the one before it over the Four Corner states. So this is a very active time period. We've got at least 2, if not 3 big pushes of moisture coming into the west. So let's just kind of take a look at what the totals look like. Now, I'm only going to go out a week on these. We'll go out 10 days on the ensembles. But just take note, my color bar here. When you get up into this shade, we're talking 5 inches of liquid in the model. And up here, we're talking about 10. So there's just the risk in the model of getting extremely heavy rainfall. Maybe 6 to 10 inches of rain could hit some of these coastal areas. And there could be up to 6 inches of liquid in the snow that'll be going over the mountains. The snow ratios plus the snow elevations will be critical to know how much we get there. But that change, look at that moisture coming into this area. We really need to see this. And I know I have a lot of viewers in Kansas. Let's see if we can get these next couple of systems to deliver some much needed moisture into this part of Kansas and Missouri and also into Nebraska. Most of it stays to the south though, and the GFS has this. So European GFS, it's, decent agreement overall. There's differences in the amounts, but decent agreement. From there, let's talk about the snow side of it. I was just watching the European model. Let's just get some timing on this. So possibly some light snow here and up against the Appalachian Mountains, but through early Thursday morning, right? There's Wednesday night, Thursday morning. I'm keeping an eye right here on the Cascades, the Sierra Nevadas. And we get that first push of moisture Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Look at it come into the Rockies. Could get some snow in the western plains here. See this? And then remember, the second big surge is Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And notice that in the model, we go off the color bar at that point, meaning there's the chance at over 40 inches of snow hitting in total, hitting the Sierra Nevada. I actually think it's going to be much higher than that. I think we're going to see snowfall totals here possibly getting up into that 4 to 6 foot range. And out of these next few systems, and it's really going to add up quite a bit. But just take a look at the whole West as we look out over this time period. The GFS is on board. We get the same kind of setup with the GFS looking over that same time period. So here's some ensemble information, and then we'll get into a temperature forecast and wrap it up with South America. I like these 5-day sliding window of average precipitation anomalies. So this is playing through the 5 days ending on the 6th of February. And then as we play forward, this is the 5 days ending on the 10th of February right here. And then this is the 5 days that'll end on the 15th of February right there, or the 14th. So we do start to spread some of this moisture into the Midwest, but it's going to be after about 8 days. It'll get into here. So we've got a while of getting some drier conditions into a place that's been extremely wet as of late. Probability-wise, who's got the best chance at hanging on to a possibility of staying dry? Well, this is the 10-day forecast of staying under 1/10 of an inch. So again, I told you kind of the last holdouts, the Midwest, upper Midwest, and New England. It's also a bit drier here in New Mexico and parts of Texas. But if we flip this over to the wet side of things, here who has the best chance of getting an inch over the next 10 days. So remember, we're watching this corridor plus what's coming into the west. And here we go. This is the chance of 2 inches of liquid. This is the chance of 4. Look at that. These are probabilities in the 50 to 80% range. Some places along the coast, up to 90% chance of getting 4 inches of rain in 10 days. And for the really heavy stuff, we'll keep an eye here, maybe in the Sierra Nevada along the coast. But that 4-inch number is pretty impressive to take a look at here. Okay, beyond that, the pattern, remember I mentioned this earlier. If we just watch from February 9th all the way out there to like February 13th, this will be key. Does this ridge actually come in? And if it does, then we do set up at some point later in February some colder air that'll be there. But over the next several days, I mean today, high temperatures in the 50s, cracking 60 in South Dakota. That's Rapid City, 63 is the forecast high. So mild. This is Wednesday's highs, getting into Thursday, which means a lot of the snow is going to try to do its best to melt. This is going from Thursday toward Friday. Into Saturday, the west is getting quite cool. Sunday and Monday, excuse me. So this warm split pattern in the central U.S. and central Canada is there for a while, and very mild conditions for this time of year. Now, is it also echoed in the ECMWF? Now, take a look. This is out there day 5 through 10. Now, what I'm watching for is anything to push in this area to start to shove this farther east. We saw it in the GFS, and we do see it a bit here in the Euro. It's just going to take time. We're going to have to get past Valentine's Day before I think we get a significant shot at getting some cooler air. And it all comes down to the same narrative. The MJO is stalled out. It's staying here for a while. It's not moving into its colder phases. And as a result, there's no prompting from the Pacific for it to move around. And then, you ask about other things. Well, the polar vortex is just sitting and spinning very strongly. It's centered over more of Russia than it is the Arctic. And the more that looks like a tight donut of spinning air, it's not, it's got a tighter grip on the cold air, just anchoring it over parts of the Arctic. And even if you look at those wind speeds, we want to look for, see this black line? You're looking for any time period when the forecast, which is shown in this color, just drops the strength of the polar vortex off. And it's not. It's kind of keeping it about average. So I've got no help from the polar vortex and really no help from the North Atlantic. Have you noticed my attention's gone back to the Pacific so much? Well, the North Atlantic Oscillation, it's got to dive negative if you want to have a big ridge in Greenland to displace cold air. And it's just bouncing around here. And the Arctic Oscillation, it's also quite positive or neutral going forward. You need the AO to really bottom out here to start to displace some of that colder air. So I don't really have much of a narrative change in my long range. You know what I'm looking at for spring and summer based off of some of the videos over the last week and a half. You saw my analysis from El Nino yesterday, and I'm honestly just waiting on the Pacific, and I'm waiting on MJO to start to move to give me a different story. So that story then means we need to go talk about South America. I want to talk temperatures first. Because as I play this animation forward, you're going to start to see every afternoon these colors showing up. Now, I do put a contour line around 40 degrees. So this would be 40 is 104 Fahrenheit daytime highs. But I want to be clear on something. It's not as though we don't grow stuff here, but the primary growing area, okay, when you think about this, is kind of into this area. There's the Parna River, and this is the border between Paraguay, some of the southern Brazilian states, Uruguay, and Argentina. So what I'm trying to say is it's going to get hot, but the greatest heat is going to hug the Andes. See it here? And it's going to be down in Buenos Aires, where they'll be deep into the 90s, but it's not, I'm just saying it's not the very, very troubling hot that we can sometimes get. So I'm just playing each day. Now, we're going to have some days in here, like this weekend, where it does get pretty smoking hot in places. But does it last? Playing out there into early next week, we continue to see that heat on. But I think Argentina, given how much rain they've had, can take 10 days of this, and it's just now starting. I don't think this is going to be a devastating amount of heat that comes in. And notice it didn't get into Brazil very much, and that leaves us kind of here with our last map today. We noticed that the European model for week 2 kind of trended a bit wetter, bringing some of that moisture a bit farther to the south into Mato Grosso do Sul and over here towards Sao Paulo. But there is going to be a big high pressure cell keeping it dry in Paraguay, Uruguay, and down into Argentina. So while I am not overly alarmed at the heat. That doesn't mean there won't be some stress on the crop there, but given just how much moisture has fallen into Argentina this year and in southern Brazil, you have to think they've got some in the bank such that they can endure some heat. Remember, the major stresses happen when you have the double whammy of heat and drought, and Argentina's not in drought. So we'll leave it at that. I'll talk to you tomorrow, and have a good one. Thanks.